got this tractor used in August of 2023. It had 380-ish hours on it. Now it's got 503 and some change. And to be honest with you, I paid less for this tractor than I paid for a brand new Mahindra of similar size, a similar setup. Loaded tires, bucket. This had a quick hitch, and then I bought a hydraulic top link, and that works pretty well. I also got the canopy and all these work lights. I'm not going to tell you how much I paid for it because it won't be relevant in a year or two anyway, but just suffice it to say that a used John Deere is cheaper than a brand new Mahindra. One of the things I like about John Deere is I can get parts fast, whereas with Mahindra, it took me 6 months to get a part. So, and the part was super expensive. I will tell you that the quality of the John Deere manuals I've always been impressed with. They're so much better than pretty much everybody else. The pictures are high quality. They're crisp and easily read, easily followed, whereas some of the other ones you can tell they've been interpreted a time or two. When you take something from a different language and interpret it back into English or translate it back into English, it doesn't always make perfect sense because they do it literally. So John Deere always does a good job with their manuals. And I know that John Deere supplants part numbers from time to time, but usually when you look it up, it refers to the original part number or the last part number that was used. So they don't really go out of style as far as, or get outdated as far as the part numbers go. But let's stop talking about stuff like that and let's take a circle around the tractor. And again, I'll show you what I love about this tractor and just a couple things that I think they could have done better. This tractor was built in Georgia. Yeah, I know that nothing is 100% built in America or anywhere. It's global parts, but at least there's a plant in Georgia where they built this. I think Tractor Tim has actually visited it, so you can go and check out one of his videos and you can see these tractors go through the line. This is a 3039R. It's a 2017 model. They've had a couple of different loaders. This is the H165, and I haven't really checked all the specs on the other ones. I think they're about the same. But one thing about John Deere is their loaders are performance matched for their tractors by John Deere. They're not like third-party manufactured like the Mahindra was. Start at the front. The lights, they're not LED lights. They're just incandescent bulbs, and they're okay. But one thing about the John Deere, you don't have to move the grill guard to access the engine. It's just this little lever here, and then the top comes up. And it's not super difficult to access everything in there, but you can take all this junk off to get into it. It's not super easy. You can also take the loader off to get to it, but most of the stuff has been designed to access with just the hood popped up or without even lifting the hood. Now this bucket is what they call their heavy-duty bucket, and it's got these reinforcement plates on it. And then this right here is all solid, so you got about 1.5 inches, 1.75 inches here. The bucket hook in the middle. It's got the heavy-duty bolt-on cutting edge that's reversible, and this is to increase the dump. The one thing I like about this is you can see the grease fittings are here on the ends, so you can have your bucket on the ground and access all these pins that otherwise would, like the Mahindra, you have to have the bucket raised to get at and grease them. And so the whole loader is greasable from the side, and just the quality and the steel is way different than in the Mahindra. This feels like somebody actually put some metal in it. You can see the whole frame here is all heavy duty. Previous John Deere I had, when you remove the loader, the grill guard would come down and be the stand. Well, this one has the stand underneath, so it's also a two-piece, or not a two-piece, it's all one piece, but it's not one post like the Mahindra is. And I can never get the Mahindra back loader off without it sliding some cockeyed direction, and this one all comes down, so the whole loader is its own stand. You don't have to fish for something and put pins in. It just all comes off, and it's very simple to get the loader off. You just have a couple of quick releases on the side, and then you can operate the joystick and dump it and then disconnect your hoses. So super impressed with the loader on this tractor. Now a lot of people will complain about the John Deere Loy or plastic hood. I have owned quite a few John Deere tractors, and I have not one time had an issue with this. And yeah, I can understand if you leave it outside in the sun day after day in the rain and everything else, it takes its toll on it, but that's true with anything. So I haven't had any trouble with this, and I know they're super expensive to replace, but it hasn't been an issue for me. So I think it's just a matter of preference. People will be all up in arms about the plastic, and it's just a matter of personal preference. But I think the good of this tractor outweighs the fact that this is plastic. But every tractor, this is all plastic. This whole thing is plastic on them. So my brother has a Mahindra. He dropped a log on it, and now he has a giant dent that he's never going to pound out. And people will say, well, I can sand and paint rust or whatever, and sure you can. I've seen people put fiberglass repair stuff on these, so just pick your poison, right? So not an issue for me. Some people will complain about it, but again, not an issue. Not a huge fan of the gas tank being up here. It's easy to get to, but I like the ones with the gas tank either over here or the fuel tank. It's not gasoline, it's diesel, but it's just, and I have a bulk tank, so it's not really a problem for me. But if I was lifting 5-gallon jerry cans up there, you know, they get heavy. And this right here is for the turbo, so people ask what that is. The John Deere front end is super beefy, and then right there's your block heater plug. This has 14-inch tires on it, and the Mahindra has 16s. So with the Kubota I had and the Mahindras, they had 16-inch, and I think I like the 16 inches better. They give you a little bit more clearance. I think they just look aesthetically better because they're taller and whatever. Not a big issue, I guess, for some people. So you got quite a bit of crop clearance under here. There's not a lot under the gears here, but this whole assembly is way more beefy and structurally rugged than the Mahindra is, or a lot of the tractors I've seen. I know Kubota makes a pretty decent one, but Kubota has their tie rods on the front. I've seen some people stave those up and bend them. John Deere has it in the back. These are the 11.2 24 ag tires. Now, I prefer ag tires, and I can argue with you all day long why ag tires are better than industrials for most applications, but that's not the point of this video. The whole deck here is isolated, or the operator's deck platform. It's all isolated with ISO mounts, and you got a step. You got a toolbox here. I've got these brush guards, forward lighting, and you get your hazards, your tail lights. Yeah, and this is all plastic. The Kubota I had was plastic also, and I was bush hogging one day and I got a branch under here and it came up and took my tail lights out of the Kubota. So like I said before, pick your poison. Every tractor has plastic in it, so I don't go with the the plastic deal, because everything these days has plastic. Let's look at the rear end of this tractor, and you can see that this whole assembly is just gymongous. And this reminds me of like some of the old farm tractors with the bolts and the places to hook the fenders on there. So just way more beefy than some of the other tractors I've seen. John Deere makes tons of adjustable parts on this hitches. You got grease fittings everywhere. And so here's your extendable links, and these are tougher than the Mahindras. And the hydraulic top link obviously didn't come with it, but I like the iMatch for the most part. It can be a little bit of a pain sometimes because you have to change this, and I'm not going to tell you again how much I hate pats. I can go all day long and tell you why I don't like pats. I like the flex ends the most. This is the second thing I like, is these. And then your adjustment here is way more robust than most of the stuff I've seen. And here's your work light. So here's a dual selective control valve here, ergonomic, and you can have a third function a lot of times put on there. John Deere's hydraulics are located in behind the fender and you can't even see it. So to do hydraulic maintenance, as far as getting into the hydraulic block, it does require some disassembly, but it's better than the Mahindra, which is all hanging underneath the floorboards there. People will have a matter of preference on their hydrostatics. The heel to toe is what I have on the Mahindra, and you get used to it. But this is what I cut my teeth on with hydrostatics, was these. And so people sometimes will get confused, but I think it just depends on what you used first, a lot of times, on what you prefer. So I like this, some people don't, so a matter of preference. But I think the operator station's cleaner without the heel to toe, and also it doesn't seem to make my knee or my foot as tired as the treadle pedal does. Now this isn't stock, this is something I added. It's just like the old tractors. You basically have one circuit with one valve here, and I just have a knob. So when I push it forward, it uses the front of the tractor, and I pull it back, it uses the top link. And it's really simple. I don't use the top link a lot. Usually I just adjust it once and then I'm good. But one thing I like about it is once I set it, this has the check valve on it, so when I set it where I want it, it stays. So here you've got some of the electronics. Now I am not a deluxe electronics person. I've always been, when I buy a truck, I like the Work Series. Same with tractors. I just feel like more electronics and gizmos is the more stuff that can go wrong with it. This is no exception. I got such a good deal on this tractor that this is what it came with. You've got auto throttle, so you set this, and what it does is when you push the pedal forward, it revs up the engine, so you actually go faster. and this right here is stall guard. And then you've got your cruise control here, and your PTO, and then you got some switches for like auxiliary lighting. Here's your power port, place for your cell phone, and obviously your drink of choice. I really like this valve here. I feel like this is one of the probably the best 3-point controls I've seen. It feels right, it's solid, it's easy to use, and then your depth set here is not something chintzy that's just clamped on with a screw. It's actually there for good. Folding ROPS, but obviously I'm not going to use that with a canopy. Here's your throttle here. Now this right here is what cycles through your display on your dashboard. And you got your lights, you got your headlights, then you got your work lights and all the lights. There's a knockout there, and so your display's got a little digital display on it that is actually easily read, and you can cycle through different things. The power steering is tight, easy to use. It's like dialing a phone. Your brakes, so you've got separately controlled brakes for your turning brakes, and I like that they're over here where they're supposed to be instead of on top of this like some people do, because then how do you use your go pedals and your brakes at the same time? So four-wheel drive select, here's your parking brake, there's your differential lock, and then your rate of drop is right there, and your seat handles. It tells you your ground speed also. It also tells you when you need to regen. If you're running at high enough RPMs, it cleans it out on its own. They are either going to go into regen, or they'll be like the Mahindras that are already Tier 4 compliant, and it's just the MCRDs, the common rail diesel, tends to run a little bit hotter, I've noticed, whereas this doesn't. It's just you can only delay it a little bit, and then you really need to do it. If you do it too much, you're going to end up taking it back to the dealership. So one thing that I don't particularly care for is John Deere still has their proprietary attachment for the bucket, and you can get an adapter plate, and just depends on where you get them. If you get one from Frontier, they're probably $1,100, $1,200, but that's in today's prices, so who knows what they'll be in the future. But just keep in mind that most of your skid steer attachments, actually all of them, aren't going to work on this unless you have an adapter. And so John Deere does an offer like Kubota does, where you can get the loader right from the dealership with the skid steer adapter on it. With the skid steer connection, an integral part of the loader, you have to buy something separate. So not a big deal for me, because I have two other tractors that are able to use the other attachments I have. So don't care, but it could be a factor for some people. This tractor did come with adjustable wheels, which you'll notice a lot of the manufacturers, when they have, no matter what is a single piece and it's not adjustable, you get what you get. These tires are loaded with beet juice, and I got some bolt-on weights, and those are from Agri Supply or something like that, but they fit perfectly. You check your oil right there, and there's your oil filter, and here's your fuel water separator, and your fuel shut off. There's your oil fill and check for the front axle. So to sum it up, there's just those couple things that I don't care for very much, like I mentioned. John Deere or Kubota, to me, one's just as good as the other, and it just happened to be that the salesman for the dealership nearby was an old family friend and found me a good deal on a used tractor. I told him what I was looking for, and he's like, give me a couple weeks, Tom, and I'll find you something in your price range. So super happy with this tractor. It's just phenomenal. I just can't tell you enough good things about it. It's quiet, it's smooth running, everything is just you know, and like I said, a lot of the little things that you don't notice unless you put them side by side. You wouldn't notice the 8 bolts or the extra heavy duty parts, maybe the bucket or the way the loader attaches or detaches. There's just so many things that people see a price point and they're like, well, I don't want to buy a John Deere because it's so much money. Well, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I told you I paid less for this tractor than the big Mahindra over there. So they are out there, and you know, during COVID, everybody bought a tractor, and now they're all for sale, and you can get a good deal on a used one cheap. But again, like I mentioned before, make sure that if you buy it, make sure that find out who owns, you know, for lack of better terms, the title on it, because if party A buys it from the bank B, and bank B still owns, you know, the title on this tractor, then you're party C and you buy it from the person, and they don't take that money and pay the bank off the first time you bring this tractor to the dealership. The bank's going to want their money back, so they'll take this tractor, and you're screwed. And then you have to take the other person to court, and hopefully that you can get it back. So getting it from the dealership, people will have issues with that too sometimes, but I guess it's just know your dealership and where you're getting stuff from. But the Kubota dealer changed hands, so the old family is gone, and there's a new big conglomerate that took over. And I actually talked to the sales manager, and he said he'd call me back, and he never did, and didn't answer emails. So I was like, well, I guess you don't want to sell me a tractor. And I have no regrets. And I've owned orange, I've owned green, and like I said, one's just as good as the other. It just depends on where you can find the best deal or get what you want. I've got a lot of Mahindra videos, and I own them. I can tell you good and bad things about those too, but we'll save those for another day. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and hopefully if you're out looking for a tractor, consider a used one from a reliable source, and you can get a heck of a lot more tractor for a lot less money by buying a used one. And knock on wood, I haven't had a single problem with the John Deere after 120 hours, and I can't say that about the Mahindras, but I can tell you that the Kubotas I had, my wife didn't even realize that I had Kubotas because she never saw them parked out in front of the garage getting worked on. So, I mean, that speaks for the Kubotas as well. So what he did is he ordered the stuff, like the canopy and a couple other things, and he delivered it free of charge. I used it for hay and for a while. The parts came in, he came and picked it up free of charge, serviced it free of charge, and then brought it back free of charge. So it's just good business as far as I'm concerned. And now I'm about 18 miles from the dealership, so it's not like it's a huge excursion to get it to and from, but still it costs fuel and man hours to do that. So to me, that's just great service.